Hi class, quick interjection here before I get to the rest of the video. I finished recording everything and I realized that a few of you had questions about how to insert a header or footer in Word. So the meat of the video is going to be coming up next, but I just wanted to point this out really quick. So if you need to add a header or footer with your name and information for a paper, what you're going to do is come up to your insert. So this is the insert tab and you're going to click header. So note we usually work with headers in APA, so you shouldn't need to worry about a footer, but the same process applies. So then you will come up to the built-in options and you can either do a single, a triple, or something a little bit fancier. I'm just going to use a single for reference here, and then you'd put last name, page, or whatever information is required. And then that's basically all you have to do to insert a header, and you'll notice that it applies to every single page. There are a couple little things that you can do to tweak it. So I'm going to double click on it and open the header again. And you'll notice that under the header and footer section, you can do a different first page, or you can have different odd and even pages, for example, so that if you wanted to, this is obviously getting creative, and it's not necessarily APA style, but if you wanted to have like your name on one side or one page and the date on another, or the title and then your name alternating, you can have the even page footers or the odd page header and footers. So play around with those options, but that's basically all there is to it. And if you want to delete it, all you need to do is come up to the header and remove header, and then you're done. So that's all there is to headers and footers. Now on to the actual meat of the video. Hi class, I wanted to take a quick minute to show you some of the markup and annotation tools that are available in Word. I'm using the most recent version of Word as of October 2022. Depending on when you're watching this, there might be a different version available, or you might be using an earlier one. If that's the case, you might have to adapt some of what I'm showing you because there might be subtle differences, but I'm going to assume that everyone has a pretty similar looking Word setup to what I have here. So the idea with the markup and annotation is that you are going to be able to make notes for yourself, color code things, and basically mark your information in a way that's going to make it easier for you to continue writing and keep your information organized. Now the basic principles here can apply to reading other sources, but this is specifically designed towards helping you during the writing process, not necessarily the reading and trying to find sources process. So I'm going to just start up at the top and show you some of the key things that I like to use, and you can try as many of these as you want and see what you like. But I'm just going to start up under Home. So if you have Word up, make sure you see all of the tab options here, and under Home, the first things that I want to show you are probably the most obvious, and that is just the coloring and the highlights and the underline and things like that. So I'm using the APA sample paper. This is going to be available in pretty much any class, so whether you're watching this in an English or a literature class, I should make this available just because it's a really good resource to use for the foundation for your writing. So I'm in the sample paper, and I'm just going to start off by showing you some of the basics. So the easiest one is probably highlighting. Now, I've said in different posts and videos before that I like to use different colors for different meanings. So this usually applies to when I'm reading, but for example, I'll highlight definitions, and then I'll highlight terms, and then I'll highlight things that I want to quote word for word, or I might highlight something that I just want to take the general idea of. But I'll use a different color for each one of those options. So for example, when you're doing your own writing, you might want to highlight something in yellow that is just something that you want to remember to come back to. Maybe you don't like the way a sentence flows and you want to look at it again, or maybe it's something that you're not clear on. You're just putting your own information in there and you want to go and get a source. Whatever it might be, consider using different colors to mark different things. So this is just up under the Home tab under the highlighter feature. So you'll see that you can pretty much pick any color that you want. So come up with a color scheme that, no, that one really doesn't work. A color scheme that you like that means something to you. Obviously the color selection's arbitrary, but pick colors to make notes in a way that would make sense to you. So for example, if I wanted to maybe note something for later, I'm going to click on this and I'm just going to highlight the intro because maybe my introduction is the weakest part of my paper and I want to remember that. So you can just highlight it. Another thing that I like to do is specifically highlight text and change the text color. So you'll see this is the font color. It's set on red right now. This works along with highlighting, and it's something simple that you can do to give meaning or to mark something in a way that you want to remember it. So red for me, for example, is something that I really want to remember in the future. This is both for writing and for reading. So I'll mark red text as something that I absolutely must come back to for one reason or another. The next thing that you can do is, you might see this in some of my grading, but use the strike through feature. Let's say that you're doing your initial review of a paper before you turn in a rough draft and you're trying to cut things, but you don't necessarily want to just delete everything immediately. The strike through feature, if you highlight the text and click it, it will obviously put a line through it and strike out whatever you've highlighted. Like I said, this might be good for doing a review or revision process where you want to cut things, but you don't necessarily want to get rid of the information, because sometimes when you delete all the information, obviously it's gone forever, and there might have been something in there that you could salvage and put somewhere else in the future, but you don't necessarily want it now. So the strike through feature is really useful for that. And then some of the other things that I'm sure you're familiar with are the italicize and underline. Obviously these are used more for when you're writing the titles of books and things like that, but you can use them for your revision as well. The next thing that I want to show you is still under the Home tab, and it's this right here. It's called the Show Hide. This basically shows and hides every piece of formatting that you're using in Word. So if there's some weird spacing issue on your paper, like maybe it starts instead of up at the top of the page, you'll notice that your paragraph starts down here and you're not sure why. If you click that, it's going to show you every little piece of formatting. Now, I'm not going to go through and describe what each one of these symbols mean, but it will at least give you an idea that you can look into it to learn a little bit more. So these right here, for example, mean you pressed enter for a paragraph and you'll go, oh, okay, so the only issue there is that there's just extra, somebody pressed enter a few too many times. But you'll see that it shows every little bit of formatting. So if you need to really fine-tune your piece, see, for example, it'll show you where there's a page break. So that way you'll know if there's an actual page break versus just pressing enter a bunch. This is a really helpful feature for when you want to put the finishing touches on your paper to make sure it looks perfect according to APA style. The next thing that we're going to go and take a look at is under the Insert tab. For revision and annotating, this might not be the most useful. This is where you can insert your page breaks, by the way. So if you want to end a page somewhere, let's say you want to end it right here, you can insert a page break and the next section will appear on the next page. But obviously you don't want to do that because you can't have a dangling header. But this is where you can insert pictures, and maybe, I know a lot of you are probably visual learners and you like physically writing things on paper to keep track of. You can do something similar to that. So for example, if you wanted to come up to Smart Art and you wanted to do a cycle just to make some notes, I know that a lot of you might brainstorm this way. You can come and just kind of fill in what you want right here. And then, so you get the picture. You can use this probably in a really, maybe you're outlining or brainstorming. These sort of tools are a lot better at the very beginning of a project, obviously, unless you do actually need to put art in the paper, but that's going to be rare in an English or literature course. But that's there for you if you like to be a visual learner and you want to take notes or put information in your paper as you're going to help sort of brainstorm or develop your ideas. The next thing that I want to take a quick look at is over in the layout. This is where you're going to adjust your spacing for between the lines and your page setup. These are where you're going to find all this information. So the margins for APA style are always 1 inch. So if I ever make a note that says your margins don't look right, this is where you're going to come under layout and page setup. This little tiny arrow here, you can take a look at the margins. So sometimes you'll find that for one reason or another, actually I'll do it on the sides. Your paper might be jammed over to the sides. If I mention that, it might be because your margins are off, and you're going to find that up under page setup. That's something that is going to be not necessarily for annotating or marking up, but it is for editing your paper. The next thing that, actually, let me go back and fix that really quick. The next thing that I want to show you is review. This is a really important one that I like to use a lot, especially in the revision process, not necessarily in the early writing process. But if you come up to the review tab, you're going to have what's called the comment feature. Let me come down to maybe the references. So when you click on the comment feature, what I like to do is highlight a specific area. And then if you click new comment, you'll see that a comment box appears. So this, you can put whatever you want in here that's going to help you. So for example, obviously the references thing is good here, but you can put a note. Don't call it bibliography, call it references. And then that note will be attributed to that section. Now, let's say that you don't want to see all of your notes. You see up here where it says show comments. If you click that off, it'll hide that when you're looking through, but it will still keep the little comment icon up there so that you'll know there's a comment there if you want to clean up your workspace a little bit. So again, if you click on that, it'll bring it back up and you can reply to yourself or add more to it. So let me just copy and paste this really quick. So let's say you're just doing a quick skim and you want to note that reference is in the wrong spot because they're supposed to be in alphabetical order, but you don't want to physically go in and do that right now. You can highlight it, create a new comment, and just say, put in alphabetical order. Then you'll just press enter on that, and that way you'll be able to remember this in the future without having to actually do it now, and you won't forget. So like I showed you, when you click on the comment, you'll be able to see the comment for yourself there. And you can use this in any way that you want. This is one of the things that I like to use the most, especially when you're revising or the brainstorming session. You can maybe say, let's just delete this paragraph. APA format, include margins, yada yada, 1 inch on all 4 sides. And then maybe you can put a note here, new comment, that says, talk about other APA format options and rules here. So you see, I didn't even write the section, but this note here tells me that this paragraph is going to cover more of the APA style rules so that you'll remember what you need to write when you come back to it. And then if you really want to get crazy to remember it, you can specifically highlight it so you don't forget. So that's another option. You can include these, but the review tab has a lot of really good information for you when you want to take a look and mark things up. You can play around with some of the other information here. This is not going to be as useful, but I just want to touch on it. So if you come up under the references page, just like the comment feature, you can add footnotes to any part of your paper. So let's find this quote here. Let's say that you want to make a note about this quote. Maybe you want to include more later on. Like, let's say this quote is actually several sentences long. What you can do is just add a footnote. And in your footnote, you can say, include rest of quote. So that footnote will be there. You'll see the little number 1 there will refer to that footnote. This is, like I said, very similar to the comment feature. It's just a different way of doing things. Again, this is under references and insert footnote. And let's say that you want to delete that footnote before you turn in your paper. All you need to do is come up to the specific footnote section on the text and just highlight it and press delete. And that'll delete not only the number, but the actual footnote as well. So be sure to use that if you like to keep footnotes. Again, that's probably not something you're going to use as much as the comment feature, but it is very similar, just in a different way. And note that we don't usually use footnotes in APA style like that. That's not how we reference things, so that's why I say it's not going to be as useful, but it is something that you can do if you like. So let's just really quickly run through everything that I covered just so that you can see it again. Under the home page, remember you have your highlight and text color. Pick colors that mean something to you so that when you mark them, the color will tell you what you need to do or remember for that without actually having to write that down as well. You can underline, italicize, and use the strike through if you want to delete something but you don't want to actually get rid of it yet, so that's good for the review process. Under Insert, you can add Smart Art and pictures if you're a visual learner and brainstorming. And if you recall, it'll look something like that depending on what option you pick. But as you can see, there's a lot to choose from. Then if you go to Layout and Page Setup, this is where you're going to be able to adjust your margins. That's really critical for making sure you nail the APA style. And then if you go to References, you get the footnote option, where if you highlight something and you add a footnote, this is a footnote, you'll have the footnote there. Again, not something you want to keep in there, but probably during the writing process it might be useful. And then if you go to Review, this is where you're going to have the feature to add comments, highlight a section, new comment, delete this if paper too long. And then that'll be attributed to that section. And then if you don't want to see all the comments, you can just click Show Comments, and that'll show or hide the comments. And the little comment bubble will appear there so that you know there's a comment attached to that. Obviously, there's a lot more you can do with Word, but I just wanted to cover some of the most useful things that you're going to need. You can play around all you want and really look into the features, but these are probably going to be the most useful on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. If you have any other questions, go ahead and let me know, and I would be happy to provide some more information, but this should take care of it for now. I appreciate your time, and I hope you all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.